This week on Vaticano, travel to Canada with Pope Francis as he takes his 37th Apostolic Voyage. See the incredible work the Church is doing in South Sudan, giving aid to the faithful and all in need. Sit down with Professor Jesús Miñambres to take a closer look at the new financial investment policies that will be enacted by the Holy See, and find out what makes art sacred by visiting the Sacred Art School of Florence. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. On July the 24th, Pope Francis landed at Edmonton International Airport in Canada, fulfilling a promise he had made some time ago. He himself described this visit as a penitential pilgrimage that was to be entirely under the sign of reconciliation. Pope John Paul II had previously visited Canada several times. In 1984, he landed in Quebec and traveled through the country for 12 days. In the process, he also met with representatives of the indigenous peoples. In his speeches, John Paul condemned the physical, cultural, and religious oppression to which the indigenous peoples had been subjected in the past. In 2009, Pope Benedict XVI responded to revelations surrounding abuse by church employees at residential schools in Canada. In a meeting with representatives of Canada's Indigenous peoples, Pope Benedict emphasized that the acts of abuse cannot be tolerated in society.
Seguo con dolore le notizie che giungono dal Canada.
In May of 2021, the headline that nameless graves of buried children had been discovered on the grounds of former Catholic homes caused a stir. In June, during the Angelus prayer in St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis said that he was saddened by the news from Canada about the shocking discovery of the remains of 215 children.
I vescovi canadesi e a tutta la Chiesa Cattolica in Canada. Auspico che gli incontri di questi giorni.
The Pope finally met with representatives of indigenous peoples for 2 one-hour talks at the Vatican in late March of 2022. The meetings were part of a week-long visit by Canadian indigenous leaders to the Vatican, initially planned for 2020, but then postponed. On June the 25th, the time had come. At the start of his apostolic journey through Canada, Pope Francis met with representatives of the indigenous peoples in Canada. At the meeting with representatives of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, the Holy Father explicitly asked for forgiveness for the suffering caused by members of the Church.
Me encuentro entre ustedes porque el primer paso.
I am here because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage among you is that of again asking forgiveness, of telling you once more that I am deeply sorry. Sorry for the ways in which, regrettably, many Christians supported the colonizing mentality of the powers that oppress the indigenous peoples. I am sorry.
Estoy dolido.
The next step is to find concrete ways to learn from each other and to continue this path of reconciliation together, emphasized not only the Pope, but also the members of the indigenous peoples. The penitential pilgrimage of Pope Francis to Canada was possibly already a big step on this path.
Hello and welcome to this week's Vaticano Updates, bringing you the most important news from the Holy Father and the Vatican. Aboard his flight to Canada on Sunday, Pope Francis made a point to reflect on the World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly. The Holy Father went on to urge young people to stay in contact with their grandparents, comparing this practice to a tree that takes strength from the roots and carries it forward in flowers and fruits. elderly people can share their life experience that will help so much going forward, the Pope said. In a telegram to Italian President Sergio Mattarella, Pope Francis sent him birthday greetings and thanked him for his dedicated service amid not a few difficulties. The Pope's telegram was sent days after Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi resigned. The Pontiff wrote, "At this particular juncture, marked by not a few difficulties and crucial choices for the life of the country, you continue to make a fundamental and indispensable contribution with gracious leadership and exemplary dedication." In a new motu proprio known as Ad Charisma Tuendem, meaning to guard the charism, Pope Francis changed the oversight of Opus Dei. It also decreed that its leader, the prelate, can no longer be a bishop. The Pontiff wrote that this decree is intended to strengthen the conviction that for the protection of the particular gift of the Spirit, a form of government based more on the charism than on the hierarchical authority is needed. The Church must do more for anyone affected by sexual abuse, even when the Church can appear tarnished because of these scandals, and no matter what the local conditions are. This is according to Father Andrew Small. The English priest is the interim secretary of the Pontifical Commission for the Safeguarding of Minors. The priest said, "As an advocate for the poor and the marginalized in many other areas of society, the Church should not only push for a legal system, but it should lead by example." The Vatican has issued another warning of a new schism from Germany coming out of the Synodal Way. The Synodal Way in Germany does not have the power to compel bishops and the faithful to adopt new forms of governance and new orientations of doctrine and morals. The Vatican said this in an official statement published in Italian and German on Thursday. The Holy See said it seemed necessary to clarify this in order to safeguard the freedom of the people of God and the exercise of the episcopal ministry. Thank you for watching this week's Vaticano Updates. I'm Benjamin Crockett for EWTN Vaticano.
South Sudan is the world's youngest country, having gained independence in 2011. And now it's wrestling with a humanitarian crisis. Pope Francis wanted to go there in July, but had to cancel his trip at the last minute. Vatican Bureau correspondent Colin Flynn still decided to go there and experience the Church in a country laden with problems and unexpected beauty. A failing economy, broken families, hunger, and poverty have pushed children like these into labor or life on the streets. Up to 3,000 children live on the streets, and that number is increasing daily. Many of these children are drunk or on drugs, and fighting is common. A group of priests and sisters here try to rescue these children from the streets and bring them to orphanages like this one, just on the outskirts of the city.
This is called St. Clair's House. Now, the conditions inside, they're quite dire, but most of these children here, they've come from the streets, and so the conditions here are still immensely better than where they've come from.
This room here is supposed to be like a store, but because we don't have enough rooms, that is why one of the mothers sleeping here with the children.
Showing us around is Mama Betty, the founder of this orphanage.
They sleep here like with the 3 children in this bed.
I see, sweating.
Yeah, they're sweating.
With the
Here
heat.
we have problem of power. They are not, sometimes it doesn't work. You see?
Electricity is hard to come by in South Sudan. The orphanage has been without power for 6 weeks now, but can't afford to repair the batteries for their solar panels.
That is the room too small. Like this one, they sleep with the 4 or 5 children.
4 or 5 children in one
Yeah,
bed.
yeah, and then the one mother sleep with them.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
could have one mother and 5 children in this bed
Yes,
squeezed
yeah,
in
and then some of them sleep down.
on the floor.
These rooms have the bare minimum, not even a place for the girls to store their possessions. They have very little, but try to do the best with what they do have.
This one for the girls, and they sleep two
Two girls, these are the older girls.
girls, yeah, and either we don't have something to put for them the clothes. The very important thing for me now, feeding and maybe medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest, you
You have to have your priorities. Oh, it's dirty, isn't it, the wall?
This one, yeah.
Upstairs in a room that sleeps 7 boys, we met 17-year-old Clement, who shared his experience of living on the street.
Yeah, at night it is dangerous. There are very many criminals moving at night, and if they find you, even they kill you.
Clement's parents both died when he was young, and so he was forced to fend for himself.
Before, when we were in the street there, no one who cares about us. But when Mama brought us here, now all things became okay. Life even is okay. We are now studying. Everything is now going well. We can eat and do everything.
Are you happy here?
Yeah, we are happy here.
Yeah.
Mama Betty is doing her best to help these children, but it's always a struggle to make ends meet, with little resources and no help from the government.
They don't give me money because they also say no money, you know.
They say we have no money.
Yeah, sometimes they work for 3 months, 4 months, no salary.
What are the children like? Are they traumatized?
They're traumatized. I need counseling. Like now, you see the sister is helping a lot. You know, they put for them the music and the dance, and at least they get release.
Despite having so little and conditions being bleak, and not to mention what it's like here in the rainy season, Mama Betty and the sisters try and do their best to keep the children's spirits high.
I'm able to listen, and more of it is being present.
Just showing them that they're worth something and have value.
They are loved, they are valued, and they are unique.
Isn't it difficult for them to hear that message about God's value for them, and they look around and think, well, why are we living like this, or we have so much hurt and pain and struggle and hardship?
I think sometimes the pain stretches one to even have trust in God more. When you know that there are times you did not have anything, but somebody was able to step in and even give you a meal, a single meal. So if you tell that person about God, she says, God through this person who stepped out and was able to listen to her and did something about her situation. So it builds more faith than discouragement, I would say, even when in the suffering years. My hope is that they will grow, go through education level as much as possible, and for those, and if they are not able to make it to white-collar jobs, learn a skill whereby they can be able to be settled.
And no matter how bleak the reality is, there's no shortage of dreams in this orphanage.
What do you want for the future? What do you want to do in the future?
In the future, I want to be a doctor.
A doctor? Oh, wow. Why do you want to become a doctor?
A doctor is someone who is social, working for all the people. There are very many people like here in South Sudan. The situation is hard. A lot of people are dying just for nothing. There are no good doctors here even. So I want to be a doctor so that I save even my nation.
You want to help your people?
Yeah.
God will see us through somehow. God will see us through, and I believe in God's providence.
The Holy See has just announced that it will enact a new investment policy better in line with the Church's social doctrine. This new policy for financial investments of the Vatican State and the Holy See will come into effect on the 1st of September. The guidelines say that investments should aim to contribute to a more just and sustainable world.
Don Jesús, ¿podría explicarme en qué consiste?
To better understand what's going on at the Holy See, EWTN Vatican Bureau's Almudena Martinez Bordiu Taboada spoke with Professor Jesús Miñambres, who specializes in canon property law and teaches at the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross.
¿Y cuando hablamos de inversiones?
When we speak of investments, what are we referring to exactly? Who makes these investments and with what objective?
Pues como la curia no produce
Well, as a courier doesn't produce cars or whatever, it doesn't produce goods, it doesn't sell anything, and it spends money. It needs to finance itself. There are many contributions from the particular churches, from the simple faithful, and there is a patrimony that is managed so that it will generate something, and with that they confront the expenses of the courier. In that patrimony, there are immovable properties that are more famous, let's say, which are from APSA or Propaganda Fide, and other goods that are movable that are now fashionable, so to speak, and probably render more than properties, which need to be managed, like money that has to be placed in an investment fund, or for making endorsements, so technical, financial things that help make a profit from the patrimony the Holy See has.
And how are they going to manage these investments? Who will be in charge, so to speak, of making them?
This is more complicated, but it seems that, from what I've understood, an account will be opened in the IOR that APSA will manage. The IOR is the Institute of Works of Religion, and the APSA is the administration of the patrimony of the Apostolic See. The IOR is an institute that was founded especially so that funds can easily and quickly be present in different parts of the world, and therefore it does a bit of financial intermediation so that the money is available. The APSA is the entity that manages the patrimony of the Apostolic See, as its name says. So, the APSA now has created in the IOR an account where the goods that they wish to invest from the different Holy See administrations will go, and that account will be managed by them, APSA that is, with the supervision of the Committee for Investments that was created with Predicet Evangelium, which came into force on June 5th. The first appointments were on June 7th, and now this investment policy has come out that they will keep watch over in some way.
This new regulation will come into force starting September 1st, and it will be under study for some years.
This, as is the habitual praxis, is published ad experimentum to try it out for 5 years. Therefore, until 2027, it will be in force. In reality, it's not a regulation. It's an investment policy that must indicate paths that can be taken without too much risk. Because in investing, there is an entire world of much risk and in which it's very easy to carry out injustices. To avoid this, they've made a policy that is more or less unambiguous and that can be checked by the investment committee.
In your perspective, why do you think Pope Francis made this decision now? Why were these changes important?
Last year, a norm came out with which the Secretariat of State stopped managing some goods itself and passed them to the APSA. There, they saw that some investments had been made independently. The APSA on one side, the Secretariat of State on another, Propaganda Fide on another, and other administrations on others. And that perhaps it was good that they be unified at least in criteria. Perhaps not in management, but in investment criteria. And that's why in Predicet Evangelium, which is the law on the Curia that came out in March of this year, a new economic organism appeared which is called the Investment Committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We want to make this school the crossroads of all professions that have to do with the sacred.
The Sacred Art School of Florence is an international school that teaches craftsmanship in the sacred arts with the motto, Tradition and Innovation. Throughout the history of the Church, Florence has been a reservoir of artistic talent and culture. Many of the greatest artists came from Florence and later moved to Rome to serve under the popes and populate the Vatican with much of the artwork we see today. The school is focused on exploring the theme of the sacred within many artistic fields and serves as a workshop where students, teachers, artists, and artisans meet.
This school was established 10 years ago and is in the midst of an evolution. It is becoming a foundation for contemporary sacred art. It is a school that combines innovation and tradition. It is based on 3 workshops plus one dedicated to painting, one to sculpture, one to goldsmithing, and the workshop dedicated to choreographic painting has just arrived. There are very grounded theory-type courses in theology and liturgy to understand the world of the sacred, and then a lot of practice to become artists of the body.
There's something universal in the attraction to what is beautiful and what is holy. The artistic world of the sacred attracts people from all around the world in its unique ability to speak to the soul about the transcendent in an immediate, profound, and clear manner.
People come here to become artists or artisans, but they also come here to have an even greater expertise in the dynamics of everything related to the sacred. So our goal is to train a new generation of artists and artisans of the sacred, and also to strengthen those who are already engaged in this world and intend to become more competent.
Sacred art requires a unique variety of skill sets and sensibilities in order to convey the timeless in a manner that is accessible and understandable in our ever-changing world.
This school mixes together tradition and innovation, theory with practice, and above all, make sure that you learn by working. That is, here you make orders. Here you don't make an abstract declination of what we are telling, but every day you build with your own hands what will be a work of art, a craft of great quality. So the special feature is that you learn a job.
La particolarità è che si impara un lavoro.
A concrete example of this craftsmanship is the art of goldsmithing, of making sacred objects in gold in order to be used in the liturgy.
Nelle esercitazioni che facciamo, per esempio, realizziamo delle pissidi.
In the exercises we do, for example, we make enameled Eucharistic pyxes. The students at the end of their course make a work that is usually a work that's precisely sacred. There can be crosses, for example. Some years, reliquaries are made, or monstrous, or an evangeliary. So the jewelry we use more to learn the techniques, and then afterwards, however, the goal is also to make things for the church.
L'obiettivo è quello anche di realizzare cose per la Chiesa.
Like the medieval era, today we once again turn to Florence to find future artists who will populate our streets with artwork that inspires to the sacred and transcendent.